Conor McGregor is about to do it again. The man who once shocked the world by knocking out Jose Aldo in just 13 seconds now hints at walking away from UFC and into bare knuckle fighting. So what does this mean for his career? And for both the UFC and BKFC? And most importantly, what could be the consequences of this decision? Let's find out in today's special episode. McGregor's first ever UFC fight took place in April 2013 against Marcus Brimage in Stockholm. That night he won by knockout in just 1 minute and 7 seconds of the first round. The victory not only earned him a Performance of the Night bonus, but also introduced him as a dangerous striker with speed and accuracy. From there, he started climbing quickly through the featherweight division. His ability to finish fights early became his trademark, as he followed up with wins over Max Holloway, Diego Brandao, Dustin Poirier, and Dennis Siver. By 2015, he had built a reputation for explosive knockouts and a loud personality that attracted millions of fans. The real turning point came in July 2015 when McGregor faced Chad Mendes for the interim featherweight championship at UFC 189. Mendes was a replacement for the injured Jose Aldo, but the fight still carried huge stakes. McGregor won by TKO in the second round in front of a sold-out Las Vegas crowd, proving he could deliver under pressure. This set the stage for one of the most famous fights in UFC history, McGregor vs. Aldo for the undisputed title. On December 12, 2015, at UFC 194, McGregor knocked out Aldo in just 13 seconds, and it was the fastest finish ever in a UFC title fight. That moment cemented him as a global superstar. The win ended Aldo's 10-year unbeaten streak and made McGregor the undisputed featherweight champion. His popularity exploded, with his fights drawing record pay-per-view numbers and live gate revenues. By 2017, McGregor had reached such a level of fame that he crossed over to boxing, facing Floyd Mayweather in a massive event that sold over 4 million pay-per-views. But McGregor has not entered the ring since early 2021 when he lost to Dustin Poirier and suffered a serious leg injury. That means he has been inactive for more than 4 years, which is an unusually long gap for any fighter, let alone one who used to fight multiple times per year. At 37 years old, he is no longer the young and hungry competitor who shocked the world in 2015 by knocking out Jose Aldo in just 13 seconds to capture the featherweight belt. Instead, he has become more of a celebrity businessman, often making headlines for his ventures, parties, and media appearances rather than his performances inside the octagon. One of the biggest reasons experts doubt McGregor's return is the enormous amount of money he has already earned. He was paid around $100 million for his 2017 boxing match against Floyd Mayweather, which became one of the most watched fights of all time. On top of that, McGregor sold a majority stake in his proper No. 12 whiskey brand for close to $500 million, further boosting his fortune. In addition to those two huge paydays, his UFC fights with Khabib Nurmagomedov and others generated record-breaking pay-per-view numbers, with the Khabib fight drawing about 2.4 million buys. With that level of wealth, former champion Daniel Cormier argues that McGregor has lost the drive to compete, saying that once a fighter earns that kind of money, it becomes almost impossible to stay motivated. Despite the doubts, McGregor continues to use the media to suggest that a comeback is near. He regularly posts training videos, talks about potential fights, and teases fans with announcements that never quite become reality. Some people believe he does this mainly to keep his name in a spotlight, since staying relevant helps his brand. In the fight world, reputation and attention can be just as valuable as wins. However, if he continues to announce returns without stepping back into the cage, fans may start to see him as the boy who cried wolf. When a fighter signs with an organization like the UFC, they do not just agree to fight. They enter an exclusive contract. This means they cannot fight for another company while under that agreement. Many fighters do not always think deeply about what this contract means. They see the papers, sign their names, and assume it is just standard. But behind those contracts are legal teams, offices, and business structures that work year-round. These documents are carefully created because they are the backbone of how the sport is organized. Once a fighter signs, the organization gains the right to control where and when they compete. We sometimes argue that fighters should be free to leave if they wish. They point out that promotions are powerful and that fighters should not be trapped. Public opinion can even support this idea, especially when people frame it as a large corporation holding back an athlete. But the reality is not that simple. Contracts exist to protect investments. If a company spends millions building up a fighter's name, promoting their events, and creating a global brand around them, then naturally they do not want another company to suddenly benefit from all that work. This is why exclusive agreements are standard. Now, in very rare situations, another promotion may try to step in. For instance, boxing promoters or rival organizations might express interest in bringing in a major name. But even then, the challenge is not only interest, but money. For a fighter like Conor McGregor, his earnings are at such a high level that almost no other group in combat sports can realistically pay him. When someone claims that another promoter could write the check, it often becomes clear that they do not even know how large that check needs to be. This is the litmus test. If they cannot even say what the number is, then they probably do not have the resources to cover it. UFC has the global reach, the broadcast deals, and the history of handling such huge payouts. Smaller organizations may have ambition, but ambition alone does not fund multi-million-dollar contracts. This brings us back to the McGregor debate. Could the UFC release him from his exclusive contract so he could sign elsewhere? The technical answer is that it is extremely unlikely. Only a very few fighters in history have reached a level where their contracts became this important. One historic example where such a cross-promotion almost became real was when Georges St. Pierre was rumored to fight Oscar De La Hoya. De La Hoya was not just a boxer, but also a promoter. That meant he had distribution, opponents, and money all in one place. But even then, UFC did not want to let GSP walk because they knew the value of keeping their stars under contract. The McGregor situation is very similar, only on an even bigger scale. It is also worth noting how fighters themselves react to such possibilities. If a big fight is announced and they are told they will be part of it, their excitement grows. They dream about walkouts, events, and opportunities. But the moment they learn they are not included, they lose interest. Promoters are the same. If a fight as big as McGregor's is going to happen, why would the UFC let someone else benefit while they are left out? Fighters, referees, announcers, all can walk away and say, "What do I care?" But a promoter cannot afford that attitude. Their entire business depends on keeping control of such fights. So, when someone suggests that McGregor might be released, the question is not just about him. It is about the entire system of contracts, investments, and obligations. If McGregor were released, shareholders would see it as a loss of their most valuable asset. And because the UFC's worth is tied directly to its roster of fighters under contract, letting go of its biggest name would go against its own interests. At the same time, he also announced in April 2024 that he was becoming a part owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. It immediately brought the organization global attention. BKFC, which was founded in 2018, had been slowly growing year after year. But with McGregor's involvement, its profile jumped to a new level. What made this even more surprising was McGregor's insistence that he will not just stay on the business side. He has made it clear to BKFC president David Feldman that he plans to compete in bare knuckle fighting once his UFC contract ends. This statement created shockwaves, because McGregor has 2 fights remaining in the UFC, but his future after those fights now looks tied to BK. The commitment from McGregor is not something Feldman expected at first. Many celebrities buy equity in companies and then fade away, treating their ownership as nothing more than a side project. But McGregor has been actively involved. He has been seen ringside at BKFC events, cheering for fighters, hugging them after matches, and promoting their bouts on social media. At one event, he even did post-fight press duties, speaking like an ambassador for the brand. According to Feldman, McGregor has been more of a partner than a silent investor.
Feldman himself admitted that McGregor's involvement, quote, blew away expectations.
For a fighter with a massive fortune already, estimated at over $600 million, many assumed he would just enjoy his lifestyle. Instead, McGregor sees BKFC as a serious long-term project. For BKFC, McGregor's presence could completely change its future.
Since its first sanctioned event in 2018, the promotion has steadily gained attention. Its pay-per-view numbers have grown year after year, with some events drawing hundreds of thousands of buys. Feldman has stated that BKFC has grown faster than he imagined.
And with McGregor's involvement, he believes it could become one of the top 3 combat sports promotions in the world.
He does not expect it to overtake UFC, which has been around since 1993 and generates billions of dollars annually. But he is confident BKFC can cement itself as a major competitor alongside Bellator and One Championship.
McGregor himself appears fully invested in this vision. According to Feldman, during a private conversation, McGregor told him that BKFC would be the biggest combat sport in 2 years. While that prediction might be optimistic, history has shown that when McGregor commits to something, he often makes it successful. In 2015, few believed he could rise so quickly. But within a year, he had become the UFC's biggest star and the first fighter to hold titles in 2 divisions simultaneously. His 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo for the featherweight belt and his later victory over Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight belt became historic moments.
That same self-belief is now fueling his BKFC involvement.
The timing is also important. McGregor has only 2 fights left on his UFC contract. The UFC is unlikely to co-promote with BKFC, as Feldman himself admitted, since UFC does not need smaller promotions. This means McGregor would have to finish his contract before stepping into the bare knuckle ring. Fans now watch closely to see how the UFC handles his final bouts, because if McGregor decides not to resign, his move to BKFC would be the most high-profile free agency switch in MMA history. It would also bring an entirely new audience to bare knuckle fighting, a sport known for its brutal, bloody battles. The idea of McGregor fighting bare knuckle also raises serious questions about risk. At 37 years old, with years of inactivity since his 2021 loss and leg injury against Dustin Poirier, taking a bare knuckle fight would be extremely dangerous. Unlike MMA or boxing, where gloves provide some protection, bare knuckle fighting often leads to cuts, broken bones, and severe damage. Yet for McGregor, who thrives on spectacle, this risk might be part of the appeal. A debut in BKFC would almost certainly become the biggest event in the promotion's history, possibly generating pay-per-view numbers above 1 million, which is something no other bare knuckle event has ever achieved. At the same time, McGregor's name continues to pop up in discussions about UFC fights. Tony Ferguson, a former interim lightweight champion, has been vocal about wanting to fight McGregor. Ferguson, now 41 years old, has not won an MMA fight since June 2019 and left the UFC after an 8-fight losing streak. Despite his decline, he still names McGregor as one of the only fights that would interest him if he returned to MMA. Ferguson believes McGregor avoided him during his prime, claiming that the Irish star had no interest in facing him when he was a serious contender. Ferguson, who is now turning to boxing and facing YouTuber Salt Papi, continues to fuel that rivalry, even though the chances of it happening are slim. Even fighters who are past their prime or have moved on to other ventures continue to call him out. His inactivity has not reduced his relevance. In fact, his absence from the cage since July 2021 has only increased speculation about his return. Every few months, headlines appear about McGregor's possible comeback, whether against Michael Chandler, Ferguson, or even another boxing match. Now, his BKFC ownership has added a new dimension to this discussion, because for the first time, his post-UFC career seems to have a clear direction. From a historical perspective, if McGregor actually fights in BKFC, it will be unprecedented. No UFC champion of his stature has ever crossed over to bare knuckle fighting. While BKFC has hosted some former UFC fighters like Chad Mendes, Mike Perry, and Paige Van Zandt, none of them had the global star power of McGregor. A single fight with him would instantly boost the legitimacy of the sport, attract massive sponsorships, and likely force bigger platforms like ESPN or Showtime to take BKFC more seriously. The biggest question now is whether McGregor will truly follow through. Over the past 4 years, he has made multiple announcements about returning to the UFC, but each time, injuries, business projects, or disputes have delayed him. His critics argue that he thrives on staying in the news more than actually fighting, but his equity stake in BKFC changes the dynamic. UFC CEO Dana White also, however, has not completely closed the door on McGregor. In fact, he recently suggested that if McGregor does fight again, he could still headline massive events, even over stars like Jon Jones. There are even talks that McGregor could be the main attraction for a historic UFC event planned for the White House in summer 2026. Adding to this speculation is the fact that McGregor has re-entered the UFC drug testing pool, which fighters are required to be in before competing. This move has given fans hope that he might still fight again within the next year. At the same time, Cormier and others believe that McGregor's true focus is not fighting, but maintaining his fame. When he was active and winning, the UFC saw some of its biggest growth periods. Now, whatever your thoughts are, just write them down below. And while you're down there, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more upcoming updates.